Ja, varmt välkomna till Stora Aktiedagen i Stockholm. Jag heter Bengt Söderberg och är moderator. Och jag kommer att leda frågestunden efter presentationen. Och då kan ni som sitter här i lokalen ställa frågor till föredragshållaren. Och föredraget nu det kommer att hållas på engelska. Så frågorna efteråt kan ni ställa på svenska eller engelska. På svenska så översätter jag. Men nu välkomnar vi Christian Saler från Industrial Solar. Welcome, Christian.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Sorry for speaking English. I'm still working on my Swedish. Very simple. Industrial Solar is a German company, and we have Industrial Solar Holding Europe, which holds 100% of Industrial Solar. And I'm going to tell you now more about who we are, what we do, and why we do it. So our company was founded already 2008. We are basically a spin-off from the Fraunhofer Institute for Solar Energy Systems, which is the second largest research institute in the world for solar energy. And we have started our business with a concentrating solar thermal technology. This is our Fresnel collector, a linear Fresnel collector. But we understood very quickly that this is just one solution to meet the energy demand of industry, and very early we adapted our business model to become a one-stop shop for industry that wants to reduce its emission and become green, clean and sustainable. This is what we are now. A little bit about our history, a little timeline. We started very early. We got first funding by High-Tech Gründerfonds, a fund by the German government in Germany. We have research partner like Fraunhofer, DLR. We had the first investor, Centrotech, a stock-listed company in Germany. And we were cooperating in the past with a lot of known companies, big companies like Viessmann, Kawasaki, Dürr. And we have now built up distribution partnerships with many known and big companies all over the world. We have customers like Pfizer, JTI, Chevron, Heineken. So it's quite a history. And of course, this is going to be continued in the next years. So why we do it, or what's the background? Industry is responsible for about 1/3 of our global energy demand. But everybody is talking about electricity nowadays. We almost have kind of a fixation on electricity. This is a misperception. Because industry needs about 3 times as much thermal energy than electric energy. These are all these big boilers which are fired with gas, oil, biomass, heat which is needed in processes like cooking, baking, all kind of convenience food. Everything that comes in cans and glasses has been boiled before. For brewing beer you need heat, for baking bread you need heat, for making cheese you need heat, for making tires for cars you need heat. Heat is everywhere in industry. And heat is generated with fossil-fired boilers. And there's a good possibility, a good share of this heat demand can be provided with solar technologies. And this is what we're up to. So here you see, as example, 2 technologies. One is from us, the linear Fresnel, and the other one is a parabolic trough from our partner, Absolicon, this Swedish company. This here is a more in-depth analysis of the industrial energy demand. On the left-hand side, you see again the big picture, the global energy demand. 32% is industry, and 74% of this energy demand of industry is heat. Most of it is provided by burning coal, burning natural gas, burning oil, and a little bit of renewables. Interesting, on the right-hand side is the differentiation in terms of temperature. So there is a good share, 30%, in a temperature range below 150 degrees C. Then the next one is 22% from 150 to 400. And then we have almost a half at high temperatures for steel, glass, and other high temperature processes above 400 degrees C. And with our technology portfolio, we are addressing those 52% up to 400 degrees C. So the high temperature part is a bit more difficult from a technical point of view. This is going to be handled with synthetic fuels, with hydrogen, with electric resistance heating and similar, or point focusing solar technologies. The industrial growth is predicted to up to 400% until 2050, but it's not going to happen in Europe. It's not going to happen in Sweden, not in Germany, not in the OECD countries. It's going to happen in the emerging markets. It's like China, India, Latin America, Middle East, Africa. And most of these emerging markets are in sunny regions. And our technologies, our solar technologies need solar radiation. The concentrating solar technology needs even direct solar radiation, meaning we need a blue sky. And this we find in those emerging markets. So it's a perfect match. And another big advantage is we have the possibility to create a rather high local content. When you think of photovoltaics, photovoltaics is produced nowadays mainly in factories in China. The PV modules are shipped on site, and then you need a few guys to put those PV modules on those racks. With our technology, we can create local value, we can educate people to help themselves, and this is also from a political, strategic point of view, very important. Here you see a graph showing the emissions of the different sectors, agriculture, buildings, industry, and so on. And this graph is actually from the International Energy Agency. It's the 2-degree scenario. So when you want to limit the temperature increase in climate change to 2 degrees, then this scenario has to happen. And what's interesting to see here, how those emissions of these different sectors become smaller and smaller, but industry remains almost constant. So we have to do something about these industrial emissions. And that's exactly our market. So how does it work? The Fresnel collector is like our flagship product. It's not the only product, but this is the product we are mostly known for and which is extremely interesting. So it's an old principle. It was invented by a French physicist, Augustin Fresnel. And basically, the Fresnel collector is an approximation of an ideal parabolic trough. So we have small primary mirrors. In our case, they have a width of 0.5 meter. And they are tracked with little electric drives. And they concentrate the light onto a vacuum receiver tube, which is from CSP technology, and in which heat transfer fluid is circulated. So typically, we use water, either pressurized water, or we directly generate steam. But for higher temperatures, we can also use thermal oil, for example. And with this technology, we can generate temperatures up to 400 degrees C. From a technical point of view, we have developed a modular concept. So we have modules which have a length of about 4 meters. We connect those modules to strings with a total length of maximum 100 meters currently. And for 1 megawatt, for example, we need 80 modules. This would be, for example, 4 strings with 20 modules each. And then we have 1 megawatt of thermal power. How to integrate solar heat in industry? That's a very important question. And our Fresnel collector has a special advantage which turned into a very important sales argument when you talk to customers. There are many companies out there that say, yes, I have this boiler there sitting, burning lots of fossil fuel. I want to replace it, or I want at least to reduce my consumption of fossil fuels. How can I integrate solar heat in my process? And then when you work with regular flat plate collectors at lower temperatures, then you have to tackle with the production line of the company, but the company doesn't want you to touch their production line. That's their secret, that's their holy grail. So we have the advantage that we connect, or that we integrate our solar heat system on the supply level, meaning we have the boiler here, the fossil-fired boiler, which is providing heat for the production line, for example, at 150, 180, 200 degrees C, and we connect at the boiler. We don't touch the production line. The production line stays a black box. And that's very, very good when you want to convince a customer, because they never want you to touch their process. And that's another reason why we try to team up with boiler manufacturers. Boiler manufacturers already sell their products in industry. They have the customer contact, they have the market share, but they have an old technology. Their core competence is burning fossil fuel. And this was a good business model in the past, and now it's changing. I always say it's similar like producing exhaust tubes for cars. When the cars are electric, nobody will use it, or nobody will need it. And we have a similar situation now with the boilers in industry. They have to be replaced over the next decades. And we have the technology that basically helps the boiler manufacturers to adapt their business model to be more sustainable in the future. So this is a photo of a real Fresnel installation. Here you see those mirrors, those primary mirrors. They are tracked with little electric drives. We are tracking about 25 square meters with one little electric drive. On top, the black line is this absorber tube. You cannot see the glass tube, which is surrounding this absorber tube. And on the back, you see the secondary mirror. And in this pipe on top circulates the heat transfer fluid. For the technical people, this collector is very charming in terms of hydraulics, because if you look only at hydraulics, this collector is one straight stainless steel pipe with a diameter of 70 millimeter. It's very simple. Some examples. This was our first direct steam generation system for a pharmaceutical company, for Ram Pharma in Jordan. Jordan is a very special market for us. Jordan has very good irradiation. It's the only country in the Middle East that doesn't have own fossil fuel resources. They don't have oil. They have to import everything. All the fossil fuel has to be imported. And fossil fuel is rather expensive compared to other countries in the Middle East. And they have a lot of industry, because Jordan is a little bit like for the Arabic Peninsula, like Mexico is for the United States. So there are factories, there's industry in Jordan, which are producing products for the market in Saudi Arabia and the Emirates. Another reference, also in Amman, Jordan. This is a tobacco company. So in the Middle East, there is still more tobacco consumed than here. We have given up smoking. It's not so healthy. But they don't drink alcohol, so they smoke more. And this is a Japanese tobacco company with a factory in Amman. And to process the tobacco, they need steam. And so far, they generated the steam with a fossil-fired boiler. And the management of this company decided to reduce their emissions by 20% until 2020. And if you look at the energy supply of the factory, they quickly realized that by investing in our technology, they will reduce their emissions much more than compared to investing more in PV. They already have rather clean electricity, but by replacing fuel oil, they will have a much stronger impact. Basically, the specific effect per investment is higher with solar thermal systems. You replace, or you avoid more CO2 emissions. Here it's special that we also integrated a so-called absorption chiller. That's a machine which is converting heat to cold. And that's nice in these climates that we are addressing, because all the industry always needs also cold. And you have, during times of highest solar irradiation, you have the highest cooling demand. That's a very charming fact. few words about numbers. I'm not going to deep dive, just a few years picked out. 2017, we already showed that we can be profitable with a turnover of 2 million euro. 2018, we had a conflict of interest between two investors, which caused that we had to restructure the company, and we made an IPO at Spotlight. This business year starts only in August 2018, was a very short year. And 2019, basically, there we ramped up. We focused on system cost reduction and project development, and we also started more and more activities for energy contracting, meaning we are trying to take the burden of direct investment from industry, but teaming up with financial partners who do the investment for the system, and the customer pays every month his bill for the energy that we have provided. So our goal is that we reach profitability within the next 2-3 years, and we are focusing very strongly on product and project development. Problem is that we are currently not yet a must-have for industry. Fossil fuel is cheap, carbon emissions are also cheap. So we are turning a very big wheel, but all the governments are, having more and more policies to force the usage of renewable energy as an industry, and this is helping us. Over the last years, we have built up a huge sales pipeline with a total volume of about 3,000 megawatt. This is almost a surreal number, but it also shows the potential of this technology, but it also shows that we have to overcome the market hurdle or the entry hurdle, because we are not yet a must-have. So all the companies are interested in our solutions. A couple of weeks back, we got 3 calls of the 3 biggest companies in food sector, in automotive tire sector, and also tobacco. They called us within 10 days, and they asked for information, but they're waiting for the perfect time to realize those projects. So our typical lead times are between 1 and 2 years. With some potential customers, we are talking longer. Some words about the share. So our current share price is around 9 kroner. When the share was initially traded, it was about 5 kroner. If you think of our experience, if you think of our track record, if you think of our sales pipeline and the market potential, it's a very moderate evaluation. And concerning the board, here is to mention that Joachim Byström, the CEO of Absolicon, is the chairman of the board of Industrial Solar. So, why solar process heat? Industry is responsible for about 20% of the global energy demand. About half of the industrial process heat demand is below 400 degrees C. This is the range that we can supply. The potential is huge. So, International Energy Agency calculated something about 100 gigawatt only in the European Union. And the market for these technologies is still at an early stage, but we feel a growing dynamic, because the discussion on climate change has arrived in the center of society. We can claim that we are world leaders. There is no other company out there who has made more projects in industry with this technology. We are coming from the most known research institute in Germany, and we are working on that technology since almost 20 years. In our former mother company, we have basically made the foundation of our know-how and designed the first prototype already in 2004. It's a unique technology, it's innovative, and has very important competitive advantages. We need less ground area. So for 1 megawatt, we need about 3,000 square meters. If you calculate this with other technologies, you need much more. We can go on rooftops. With other technologies, it's not so easy to go on rooftops. With parabolic troughs, for example, which are the main competing technologies, it's much more difficult because of the wind load. We have easy, simple maintenance. We don't need much water to clean. And we can easily integrate on supply level. We have a premium product with high quality components made of stainless steel, aluminum, glass, and targeting a lifetime of about 25 years. We have built up a network of partners, including market leaders in several industries. We have a very good sales pipeline. We are very strong in R&D. We have several R&D projects going on, public funded projects, and we have a very experienced team. What are the market drivers currently? We are decreasing our system costs. Governments are decreasing the subsidies for fossil fuels. There are more and more tax incentives and subsidies for renewable solutions in many target markets. And there are also applications soon for renewable energy usage in industry. And there's an increasing corporate efforts. More and more companies want to be sustainable and reduce their carbon reductions because they want to offer green products to the customers. So that's about it. I do have a little video now, which I can only show to the audience here. It was made by a customer, and he wants to keep the video back for some reason, I think for some event, but we can show it here. Thank you.
So great. Many thanks for a very interesting presentation. And you're welcome over for some questions. And I want to start with a question. You recently won a European Solar Prize award. What was the motivation? How come you became the first there? What was the...
Yeah. So we got this award in the category industry because the jury understood that we are tackling a very big problem. There is a huge growth of industry to be expected over the next decades, mainly in countries which are emerging markets, Africa, very sunny countries. This is the region where industry is going to grow, and we have a technology for those regions in the world that can have a very high local content. And this is crucial. Basically, we have a technology to help Africa also to avoid migration to Europe, but to really build up sustainable circular industry in Africa, for example.
How do you differ in technology from your main competitors, so to speak?
Our USP is direct steam generation. We have learned direct steam generation over the last years. It's a bit tricky. You have to know how to do it, how to handle it. And our competitors, which are, many of them are using parabolic trough. And with this technology, it's much more difficult to directly generate steam. So most of them are using thermal oil and then going with thermal oil in a steam generator, basically in a heat exchanger. And with the Fresnel collector, you have the tube sitting on top. It's not moving. And you get 2/3 of the radiation from the bottom and 1/3 over the secondary mirror. And it's just perfect for directly generating steam. And we have found a way to control the system and avoid steam hammers and unwanted effects. And it's very efficient. Steam is a very good heat transfer fluid in industry.
Is there a storage solution included, since it's only daylight certain time?
We have a steam storage. It's a so-called gliding pressure storage. It's just a pressure vessel made of steel, and in the lower half of the vessel is liquid water. On top is steam. When the customer, for example, the last one needs 8 bar steam, we operate the solar steam system at pressures up to 22 bars. And we can have clouds and different effects during the day. So we always are at a higher level, and we basically expand from this pressure vessel into the customer steam grid, and we can keep the pressure constant, and we can store energy there. So this system that was shown here has a 15 cubic meter gliding pressure storage, which can store about 2 hours full load, and which is able to nibble or to keep the pressure which is required by the customer over the full day. At a very competitive cost. It's even cheaper than other phase change material storages or thermal oil storages. We have about 40 to 50 euro per kilowatt hour capacity, which is really nice.
And since most factories work 24/7, so to speak, during night, they're also going full speed. They still, it's like a hybrid. You can't go fully solar. Or
industry needs security of supply. In some regions of the world, you have monsoon time. In others, we just have rainy season. So you need always a backup, at least if you want to avoid costs of very big storages. It's a cost optimization calculation. And we like to team up with fossil solutions or with biogas-fired systems to provide cost-efficient 100% security of supply to the customer. When the sun is shining, we have the heat from the sun. When the sun is not shining, we fire with biomass, for example. Then we have 100% sustainable heat supply for a factory.
And also one final question before letting the audience in here. About you recently announced a cooperation with the energy company Uniper. Could you please elaborate a bit on that? What is the goal of it? How do you see that going forward?
We have signed the first cooperation agreement with Uniper. Uniper is basically a spin-off from E.ON in Germany. It's the part of the company that took over all the fossil energy business. And I cannot say too much, but just giving you the facts, Uniper is a big utility with several thousand employees and several billions turnover. I think 70, 80 billions turnover. They are in industry with contracting solutions, so they are selling heat to industries. And we have a solution which is not yet really penetrating the market because it's produced in lower volumes and we have to have volumes. And if you bring those competences together, it is a very interesting scenario, I would say. So I cannot say too much, but it's a very interesting work currently with Uniper. And I do hope that this work will bear fruits soon.
Okay, see if we had any more questions from the audience. No questions. Okay, so besides the Uniper deal, the business model you have today when you sell an industrial solar plant, how does it work? Do you sell the whole plant, or do you keep ownership and sell electricity? And what are the margins? Could you please explain a bit on that?
So it's a kind of a difficult business selling our technologies, because industry typically wants to use its liquidity, its working capital for its core business. They are not interested to invest in energy infrastructure. And so we have to find a way to overcome that problem. And a very good way to overcome it is ESCO, is energy service companies, basically building up a system where you sell energy to the customer, not a system. So we are working with financial partners. They can bear the investment to install a system at the customer, and they sign a long-term heat purchase agreement with the customer, and the customer pays every month for the energy that has been delivered to him. And this is also a good way to enter in the market, because it takes the technology risk from the customer. Basically, the customer pays at the end so and so many megawatt hours or so and so many tons of steam delivered. If the system doesn't work, it's our problem and the financial partner's problem, but not the customer's problem. And this is very helpful.
Okay. And when we look at the geographical situation of your markets, where geographically are you having the biggest sales?
Very interesting for us is still Jordan. We also have colleagues from Jordan. But also countries in the MENA region like Morocco. Lebanon has also a very peculiar situation. The government is spending a lot of money on subsidies on fossil fuel. And this has to change, and this is already changing. But also Chile is very interesting for us. They have very high irradiation, mining industry that has to become less dirty. And yes, we are also in Latin America, several countries, South Africa. We have an installation in Johannesburg. So there are many, many regions all over the world. But unfortunately, we currently don't have a home market. So we don't have a lot of projects in Germany. We have made a project with Pfizer. We have sold them air collectors, providing heat for their pharmaceutical production line. But our markets are typically far away.
And I'm sorry, but our time has run out. I want to thank you for a very interesting presentation. Thank you.
Pleasure.
Good luck.
Thank you.